Welcome to the Golden Time of Delta podcast, a podcast that shares 9 pearls of wisdom from the Golden Delta Deers of the Baltimore Alumnae Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Incorporated. Sorors, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Golden Time of Delta podcast. Our guest this week is none other than past chapter president and the 2021 recipient of the Baltimore Alumnae Chapter's Vashti Turley Murphy Award, Soror Eleanor Peters Matthews. At this time, I would like to give a moment of kudos to the 2021 Founders Day Committee. It was a wonderful virtual celebration honoring the 99th year of the Baltimore Alumnae's chartering and also 108 years of sisterhood, scholarship, and service of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. It was a marvelous virtual event. I think we all were pretty blown away by the production and quality level of the event. And also it was super exciting to have the countdown as we move forward to the centennial celebration of the Baltimore Alumnae Chapter. So again, kudos to the 2021 Founders Day Committee. Now, if you missed last week's episode with Soror Mingy King, I encourage you to go back and give it a listen. It was so many great comments about Soror Mingy King's words. Soror Conitra White commented, "Very nice. Love the wisdom of remembering to reflect on the founding principles of our sorority." Soror Tracy Sharp commented, "Soror King is so fiery. I love her zest. A straight shooter, but she loves Delta. Another treasure." So Sorors, thank you again for listening to last week's episode. Please go back if you have not done so. And Sorors, I must commend you all. Thank you so much for not posting this podcast to social media. We have not had one infraction with this. We haven't had to tell anyone to take it down. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And just as a reminder, if this is your first time listening, this podcast is FSEO, for Soror's ears only. Please do not share with others who are outside of our beloved sisterhood. Before we dive into this conversation with Soror Matthews, it's time for our little Baltimore Alumnae Chapter trivia. In this segment, Sorors, we are testing your knowledge of how well you know Baltimore Alumnae and its illustrious sorors. Now, this is this week's trivia question. To date, these sorors are the only mother-daughter pair who have served as chapter presidents, one as under Epsilon Beta and the other under Epsilon Sigma. So again, these sorors are the only mother-daughter pair. So put on your thinking caps, write down your note of who you think it is, and we'll find out who this mother-daughter pair are at the end of the episode. Now let's enjoy the pearls of wisdom from Soror Eleanor Peters Matthews. All right. For this interview, for this episode of the Golden Time of Delta podcast, I'm excited to be interviewing past president of the Baltimore Alumnae Chapter, Soror Eleanor Matthews. Welcome, Soror Matthews.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here, Soror Boone.
I'm excited you agreed to do this for me.
Okay, here we go.
Look, before we get into the good questions, can you just let everyone know the year and chapter you were initiated into our beloved sisterhood?
Yes, I went over in November 15th, 1962 at Morgan State University. Well, it was Morgan State College then, and the chapter there is Alpha Gamma.
Alpha Gamma. So how much would you say, and in what ways would you say Delta has changed since you became a member?
Well, number one, we've gone from 22 to 350,000. We have far more chapters. We have more sorors, as I just said. We use membership intake now instead of pledging.
Yes.
And there is no such thing as pro week. Good. And it has been shortened considerably. Membership intake has been shortened. It's only a month now. And pyramids are treated with dignity.
Oh.
So I think those are some of the main ways I've seen Delta change, but the world has changed and Delta has changed with the world.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to be here over 100 years is because we've evolved, as society and the world has changed.
Right, absolutely.
So I'm going to use the proper language that you just said. Can you share one thing with us that has stuck with you from your intake process?
Well, there are lots that I could share, but I won't. I will simply mention that I remember vividly the ceremonies, the pyramid induction ceremony and the initiation ceremony. They were so beautiful. Many of us were very, very tired for initiation, but I do remember it. And I guess the other thing is getting to really know our big sisters because, we pledged from April to November. We went online in April and we didn't go over until November.
Wow.
So we really got to know our big sisters who would one day become our sorors. And we had to go to their rooms every week and get their signatures. We had to get every soror's signature, well, big sister to me then, signature. So we really got to know them. And I think that was a lot to do with the fact that the pledge period was so long. And we had to go to their rooms on campus. And if they didn't live on campus, they were usually in another soror's room.
Gotcha. And how many big sisters did you have to go to?
All of them. And I can't remember. But chapters were much, much smaller then.
Okay.
And there were only 19 pyramids on my line.
And what was your number?
16, Alpha Gamma 62.
And I always love because you wear the sweater still, and you have that you were president, right?
Yeah, I was president when my senior year, and my sorors gave me that sweater Christmas.
Oh, that's so nice.
And of course, I graduated in June, so I didn't get to wear it I graduated in May. College graduations were in May. So I didn't get to wear it that often then. Yes, I still have it. I can't fasten it now, but I can still wear it.
But you still can fit it. And I love it. Every time you wear it, I love that sweater.
Well, thank you very much. I like it too.
Did you ever have the honor of meeting any of our founders?
Yes, I did.
Who did you get the pleasure meeting?
Campbell.
Okay.
In 1982. She was invited to come the year that I received the Thelma Banks Cox Service Award.
Oh,
and she was on the dais, for lunch and everything. And of course I wasn't, but I went up and introduced myself to her. And excuse me. And she says, "They call you Pete, huh?" I said, "Yes, Soror." And she said to me, "Well, they call me Bert." So I thought that was sort of cute, but it was an awesome experience just to be in the same room with a founder. Yeah. I never thought I would ever meet any of the founders, but I met Bertha Pitts Campbell. I'll never forget it.
That's awesome. Look, yeah. Everyone affectionately calls you Pete. So to even have that antidote with a founder, that's so cool.
Yes, but my name is Peters. That was my maiden name. So I got Pete from the time I was in high school. My sister was a couple of years older than I, and they called her Big Pete, me Little Pete. And then, of course, we went out different ways. She became Pete and I became Pete.
You're Pete.
Yes.
So what do you think the founders would be most proud of about our beloved sorority today?
I think one of the things that I said was that we've grown from 22 to 350,000. And and we're in most states and abroad. Mm-hmm. And also, I think because we have continued as a public service sorority, they broke from another sorority. Some of them broke from another sorority because they were a social organization and they didn't want to be just social. They wanted to be a public service organization. And throughout the years, we have continued the public service. We even have a social and political action committee. We have an economic development committee, an education committee.
Yeah.
We have physical and mental health committee. Well, those are the 5 programmatic thrusts, along with international awareness. So we touch all phases in the community. So I think they would be very proud of the fact that we didn't become just a social organization, even though we have fellowship among ourselves. But our main thrust is public service.
Public service, yes. What has been the most rewarding experience you've had as a member of Delta Sigma Theta?
Well, I've had a lot of rewarding experiences. I guess the first one was my initiation into the sorority. Because we were online for so long, I never thought I was going to be a Delta. But I think the other thing was serving as an officer. And I'll say why. Not necessarily being an officer, but as the vice presidents, one was over membership, one over finance, and one over public service. And having served in all 3 of those positions, I served on every committee that Delta had at the time. And I got to know just about all of my sorors. So when I became president, I still had to interact with everyone. And that was wonderful, knowing, being able to stand up there. And when the soror raised her hand, I could actually call her by name. I knew all the sorors. And sitting up front was very, very interesting because you got to know all the sorors in the room. And I feel so bad now because some of the sorors who come in now sit with my back to them because I'm one of the members.
Yeah.
And I don't know all the names. And I just say soror if I don't. And the new line we brought in, I don't know their names either. And I feel so bad that I don't. I know some of them because I knew them before they pledged.
Yes. Yeah. But, and I think it's difficult right now, too, with COVID. We're losing that in-person interaction, and fellowship. So it's making it a little even more difficult to, get to know some of the newer sorors and learn their names as well.
That's true, because even one of the sorors, because I had to get dressed this Saturday, the Saturday past, because I was in the rededication ceremony. And one of the sorors sent me a message and said, "Oh, it's so good to see you, Soror Pete," because I usually don't have my face on.
Yeah, and neither do I in the virtual meeting.
So I did Saturday because I was all dressed, had makeup on and all. So I was
I'll say too.
Then I could scroll, I hit it so I could see everybody who was on. There was a lot of sorors on.
It was nice to see faces, even though we're not in person.
Yes.
So I know we just mentioned, some newer sorors that the chapter brought in. So what Delta advice would you like to pass on to a new soror or younger sorors?
Well, to remember that membership in Delta Sigma Theta is a lifetime commitment. Now, I know that sorors can't always be physically active, but I think they knew about the money commitment before they came in. So I think we should always be active. And you know what the term active means for us.
Yes.
So they pay their dues, because even if they cannot participate, just by paying your dues, it certainly helps our youth programs, if nothing else. I mean, well, it helps a whole lot of other things, but I always think about the youth because they are the future. And I would like to say that they should always work on at least one of the programmatic thrust committees. And I think they should work for the good of the sorority and the community and not for themselves. That's what I would say and always be a lady.
Always be a lady.
That's what I would say to new sorors and to the younger sorors. And I think I have a pretty good rapport with the younger sorors, especially those I've known since I was an officer.
I was going to say that. I remember my first leadership position in the chapter as chair of Delta Academy was under your first 2 years of your administration. And so only being a Delta 3 years, I was a little intimidated, but I remember you being so helpful and made that transition so easy to being on the executive board and all that comes with being a chair in the chapter.
Yeah, well, you did a great job with those kids. I'll never forget was it under your leadership when we had the first MAD conference?
Yeah, if it wasn't me, it was Crystal right after me, still under you.
But I remember both of you all when you had that Mad Girl conference.
And you got us to do the golf tournament.
Yes, you all came up and volunteered. I was so happy because I didn't know what we were going to do. And at the time, it was our fundraiser because having lost Ebony, that was a big downer for the chapter because we had always raised so much money for our scholarship fund.
Yeah.
And so the golf tournament was sort of carrying it on. But now, like that popcorn sale.
The popcorn really did. Look, if they run it back again, it definitely should be all for scholarship money, right?
Yeah, it would be nice if a lot of it went to scholarship. I know they probably can't give it all to scholarship, but
it would definitely be awesome.
Yes, but the thing is, I had to buy from one of the sorors because I couldn't seem to get the screen set up. So I think we should get some instructions. I know that the company had instructions there, but I wasn't able to set up so I could invite my friends. So I just bought from one of the sorors.
That's look, I'll pass that suggestion on.
Yeah, because some of us, I mean, even though I can do some technology, I mean, hey, I'm not. And see, the other thing is, I was an administrator in my paying job. And when I became principal, somebody did all my tech stuff for me. All thing I had to do was just go to the meetings and present,
Yeah.
So I've lost some things.
But look, you're still pretty savvy.
Oh, well, thank you.
Can you tell us what is your favorite Delta song?
I think the hymn.
Okay.
Because it talks about loyalty, sisterhood, love. And I think that's it. I had said, when I was thinking, I said to myself, maybe the prayer. But then I said, yes, the prayer too. But that's because we are praising God and asking him. And I believe that if we all did things in a godly manner, the world would be so much better. But we don't all do that all the time. And I'm not talking about sorors necessarily. I'm talking about people in general.
Understood.
Yeah. So and plus we join hands when we sing the hymn. We're standing in a circle. We can see each other. And it's just something about the camaraderie.
I like it. So how would you like to be remembered by your sorors?
I guess I would like them to say I was a good soror and that I was involved in all aspects of the chapter activities and in the community activities that the chapter sponsored, and that I was friendly.
I like it.
People see that I don't smile a lot, and they think it's because I'm not, but I am. I think.
You are, you're one of my favorite people to look at in meetings.
Because my face is so expressive. I get that all the time.
It is. Your facial expressions are great. So our last question before we wrap up, what does it mean to you to be a Delta?
Well, I went to 2 rush parties. We had rush parties back in the day in college. And I went to 2, and the Deltas were so much more friendly and outgoing. And I said, I want to be a Delta. And Laura Bird and another soror, well, they were big sisters. Well, they weren't even big sisters at the time. I hadn't even been inducted into the Pyramid Club. They did a thing called Cheese Delta. I'll never forget it, for Chez Delta. You know the word Chez?
Yeah.
The House of Delta, because Chez is French, meaning the House of Delta, and they were pronouncing it Cheese Delta, and they were so fun. They were hilarious. The whole program was just wonderful. And I said, I would like to be in that group. So I guess I'm proud of the founders and the fact that they did break away and say, nope, we're not going to be a tea loving group. We're going to be a public service group. And I'm glad that they did that. So I try to live up to the ideals of the founders, and I try to participate a lot. And no matter where you go, I worked in, a lot of people don't know this, but my first professional job was at Alabama A&M College in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And when I got there, I soror found out I was a Delta. And we've been friends for years. She took me to the first chapter meeting there for the year, and I joined that chapter. I stayed there in the Huntsville Alumnae Chapter for the 3 years that I was there. And when I came home, of course, I joined Baltimore Alumnae. Only 1 year, and that was when I was at the University of Wisconsin working on my master's. I just graduated from Morgan and went straight there. But I was still involved because the chapter in, I think, Milwaukee it was, but it was somewhere in Wisconsin. And they found out I was a Delta. And they had a line. And a couple of the girls were on campus. So they wanted me to help them. So I did, even though I was not, in a chapter at that for that 1 year. But I'm sure people understand because I was in school.
Yeah.
And I guess working together, sisterhood. Like I said, no matter where you go, there's always a Delta.
Always a Delta.
Move, you can always find the Delta chapter and go to the meetings and meet people.
Yeah.
And network.
I love that no matter where you are, and even when you travel, it's always a Delta.
Absolutely. This morning I was at the beauty parlor, and this lady said to me, she says, because I have a red jacket too, but I have a lot of red in my wardrobe also because my school's colors, not where I went, but where I worked, the color red and black. So I have a lot of red. And she says, does that red mean anything? Then I saw the elephant hanging around her neck. And she had walked up to me and, and greeted me. And she's in Baltimore Metro.
Okay.
So you're right. No matter where you go. So I think that's about it, I guess.
Well, Soror Matthews, thank you so much for doing this. I hope it wasn't too terrible for you.
No, it wasn't.
See, I told you.
It was easy.
I told you. Thank you much.
Well, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome.
I want to thank Soror Matthews for participating and sharing her wisdom with us all. Sorors, thank you for listening to the third installment of the Golden Time of Delta podcast. And I hope that you enjoyed all that she shared with us. And we'll be back with another episode next week. Now, before we close out this episode, let's circle back to the BAC DST trivia question of the week. As a reminder, the question was, to date, these sorors are the only mother-daughter pair who have served as chapter presidents, one under Epsilon Beta and the other under Epsilon Sigma. Who are they? Founder Vashti Turley Murphy served as president of the Epsilon Beta chapter in 1922 through 1924. She was the first chapter president for our chapter. Her daughter, Ida Murphy Peters, served as president of Epsilon Sigma chapter in 1946 and 1947. What a fun fact. So that is it for this episode. Sorors, until next time, reflect on the golden time of Delta with joy in our sisterhood. The Golden Time of Delta podcast was produced by Westwood 26 for the Baltimore Alumnae Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. The podcast is hosted and edited by Soror Adrian Boone, with additional editorial support provided by Soror Crystal I. Myers Esquire, Soror Robalyn Heath, Soror Lisa Smith, and Soror Beatrice Kenua. Royalty-free music from Ben Sound.